Hey, on this episode of Talk About Games, we have the Famicom Mini. I got really lucky. About a week ago, I got an alert that PlayAsia.com had Famicom Minis in stock. I was like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. I'm going to pick this up. And I managed to get it for retail.
That's awesome.
Price, which is great. Because, as you know, the NES Mini and the Famicom Mini have both been super rare. And we only now are getting to play it and review it, even though we got the NES Minis
a while back.
Yeah. But the system is really cool because it's shaped like the Famicom.
Yeah, it looks like the original Famicom. It doesn't have the disk system attachment on top of it, but it does include disk system games with it, which is cool.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the coolest things about the system is, we didn't have the disk system in the United States. We didn't even have the disk system port. But a lot of the games that were excellent disk system titles came out later on cartridges because Nintendo had found the ability to work around the limitations of the cartridge format with that add-on chips. So get the big standout games like Metroid, like Legend of Zelda, like Zelda 2, like Castlevania.
Yeah, those are the four that are included.
They're all disk system games, but they're on here, and it's interesting the type of emulation they use. It actually shows the disk system bootloader when it starts, and then it goes into it's very much the disk system experience. There's load times when you go in Zelda dungeons.
There's a lot of loading between things in these different games, which might seem weird to people if you get the chance to try it out. Now, you had to order this from overseas, so this isn't something that you can go in.
Yeah,
you're going to be able to get.
If you look at the package, I mean, this is an import. This isn't a U.S.
And
release.
all the games, for the most part, are in Japanese, as you'd imagine. Though we were playing Zelda 2, and the scrolling sequence of that was actually in English.
Both the Zeldas, actually, yeah.
Which was a little weird. One of the main things that you'll notice as soon as you start playing this is, for the NES Classic, the controllers are the same size as the regular NES controllers. This system, the controllers are smaller now than the controllers actually are on the Famicom, on the real Famicom. These are extremely, extremely small controllers, and that's the one thing I found. This is a really cool item, but I found that a little bit problematic. And then the other thing is, it's plugged in directly to the back, just like the actual Famicom, which is kind of cool, but there's no way to swap out for a bigger controller. I was having a hard time playing this because really this is like almost something like a baby would use. It's very miniature, and I find that to be problematic because I don't know if we have an NES controller here. I wish we had the NES Classic, but the controllers are much, much larger than this. So it's like playing on a Tic Tac. I mean, it's a problem.
So one of the disadvantages to the Famicom Mini is again the fixed control. On the NES Mini, the controller ports are Wii accessory ports. So if you have Wii classic controllers lying around, you can plug them into the system. The NES Mini only comes with one controller. This system comes with two controllers, and it kind of has to, because on the Famicom, only player 1 has start and select. Player 2 has a microphone, but guess what?
Oh boy. Yeah, we tested it out, and it does not work. I actually didn't realize that because I took a quick glance at it. I'm like, oh, it's got the microphone thing on top of it. Let's try it out, and we'll do Zelda. I went through and we made it all the way to level 5, and finally get there, and then this is what happened. Here we go. We're gonna try it.
We're trying.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
Doesn't work.
There's no actual holes in here. This is phony. So that's too bad.
Yeah. There's also no, the Famicom has the eject button, but here it's just for show, and the ports.
This whole thing is very much just for show.
It's very much just for show. This is like. It's like you put it on your desk and, hey, look, it's a Famicom. Isn't that cool?
And another thing is, I almost wonder why they didn't make it. I mean, I guess this is more iconic of a thing. I guess that's why they designed it this way. But there was also the Famicom 2,
right,
which had I believe it had controllers where you can actually just plug them in, and it was the top-loading system, which was a much superior version of the console.
Well, the Famicom 2 is the NES.
It's like the top loader.
The NES top loader, with a few changes, right?
A few changes for the better.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a much easier to hook up for another thing because I believe it has the AV that you can plug it in.
Yeah.
Where if you try to play an original Famicom in the United States, especially, you have to set your channel on a weird channel, and it's hard to get it working.
Because it's only RF.
Yeah, I mean, in the United States. But, which is what's kind of cool about this, that you get the chance to play the Japanese versions of the game without having to deal with those sort of problems. But what I'm trying to say is if you want to play the Famicom games, you might pick yourself up the Famicom Model 2.
I definitely think that if you want to experience some of the differences in the most classic Nintendo titles, the Famicom Mini is a great choice because things like Zelda 2 has different music, Zelda has different music, and mostly sound effects are different.
That's the big thing about this, largely. There's some different games, but mostly the differences are in the music. There are some graphical differences here and there.
The water in Zelda 2.
The water in Zelda 2, and a couple other things here and there, but largely it's the music. One thing that I found a little weird was one of the disc system games included is Castlevania, but they don't include Dracula's Curse, which I think is a shame, and which should have been one of the titles on here, because that game is very well known for having much better music than the North American version of Dracula's Curse. So I feel like the Japanese audience is probably losing out a little bit because that's a very cool version of the game. It's also an easier version of the game, which is probably good for most people because that's an unbelievably difficult game. So I feel like that was something that should have been included on here.
Also, if you want your Metroid and Castlevania to have saving...
Yeah.
Yeah, so you know, Zelda and Zelda 2 both had battery carts that had saves. Mm-hmm. But Metroid has passwords, and Castlevania has nothing.
It has nothing, yeah.
So, being able to save in Metroid and Castlevania is pretty cool.
That is cool.
And I would say out of all the games in the collection, the Metroid music and sound effects are the most improved.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
It really, really sounds different. Actually, Legend of Zelda itself, like some of the sword sound effects and some of the other sounds,
The death sound.
The death sound. Actually, when you're fighting bosses, when you fight like Aquamentus and things like that, it sounds like somebody farting. Metroid, when you go through the doors, I thought that sounded much better. Certain sound effects, they're just
the
a lot
gun
better.
sound effects are... Oh, the other thing that's cool is in Metroid, when you're low on health, it's a much less grating sound. Like it's more of a pleasant sound when you're low on health.
Castlevania didn't seem to have many sound differences. The first Castlevania, which is on here. Zelda 2, another graphical difference was when you're on the overworld map, the little sort of black enemies that go around are actually totally different sprites in this version. So it's very, very interesting to go back and look at all the changes that they made to this. But do you want to talk about the games?
I do, and I think the first thing I want to talk about is the games that are different. I think that the Famicom Mini has a much worse selection. I do. I mean, there's a lot of games in common. The majority of the games are in common, but the American version has, and I'm looking at it here, but has Donkey Kong Jr., Punch-Out!, Tecmo Bowl, Castlevania 2, Bubble Bobble, Final Fantasy 1, Kid Icarus, and Star Tropics.
Okay. So those are the games that we got and they didn't get.
Those are the games that we got and they didn't get.
Okay.
On the Famicom side, they have Mario Open Golf, Final Fantasy 3, which is arguably better. There's a lot of quality of life.
I think that's a pretty good one.
It's a good one. It's a good one if you speak Japanese.
Well, okay.
I mean, a lot of these. I want to be honest. This is an appropriate product if you don't speak Japanese.
Sure.
There's enough English. There's enough that you can figure it out. Final Fantasy 3 is going to be hard.
Yeah, games like Shoving Sumo, that's something that we didn't get in the United States. And to me, I look at that and I'm like, what even is Shoving Sumo? I'm like, that doesn't belong on the NES or the Famicom Classic. But I guess it was popular there.
It makes sense. They have games like Shoving Sumo. We have games like Tecmo Bowl.
Right.
Obviously, American football.
Sure. So there's differences like that.
There is. Interestingly, like I think Final Fantasy III is probably a better game. It's one of the first Final Fantasies, or it is the first Final Fantasy to have the job system, which came back in games like Final Fantasy V, Final Fantasy Tactics, and other games. So that's where you get like, in Final Fantasy I, you could pick your characters one time.
Mm-hmm.
In Final Fantasy III, you could be like, oh, he's a black mage. Now I'm going to change him to be a warrior.
There's more options.
That kind of thing. You get YR Kung Fu, which is an awful fighting game. It's just
an early fighting game, which was probably cool at the time.
Yeah.
Because it was an early fighting game. People probably thought that was cool, but it's kind of dated now.
You get the Mystery of Atlantis, which is rough because you don't have the microphone.
Is that the one where you're going around like Curious George?
Yeah, you look like Curious George.
Yeah.
I found that game like I had never played it before.
Yeah, I hadn't either. Yeah.
I found it like weird, like not.
I would have to play more of it. I'm not really sure,
Yeah.
but I mean, if it's on the classic list, it must be pretty good. And that's what's cool about that is I actually didn't know about that game, so I'd like to go back and check that out more.
Solomon's Key.
Solomon's Key and Solomon's Key, you guys know, is one of my favorites. That's one that I would definitely say they got that, and we should have gotten that compared to, because there was a couple of choices on the NES Classic that was like, really, like.
Yeah, like I'd be willing to trade Kid Icarus for Solomon's Key.
Yeah, I mean Kid Icarus.
Yeah.
I like Kid Icarus, but it's long.
Or since there's Donkey Kong, would you be willing to trade Donkey Kong Jr. for Solomon's Key?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah,
and I like Donkey Kong Jr., but
yeah, I think that's pretty good, and I can think of another trade coming up, but Shoving Sumo, that's very regional. River City Ransom. I think that River City Ransom could take the place of like a Star Tropics, Kid Icarus, or Bubble Bobble.
Yeah.
Like it's a good game.
But it's interesting. This has 2 River City Ransom games on it.
Yeah, I'm not gonna try to pronounce it, but there's another River City Ransom game that is more like a sports competition between the high schools. Because River City Ransom, it's all the rival high schools, and you're at the one school that your girlfriend was taken. So you're trying to get to the other school to take them out. In this sequel or prequel, I don't know which it is, to River City Ransom, the high schools are competing in sporting events. So there's you gotta run. But it's got the same controls. So while you're running through the city trying to win a race, you can punch them and pick up rocks and fight.
It's interesting that they get 2 River City Ransom games, but once again, you're only getting Super Contra on this system, which is the same as. So I almost wonder if that's like a rights issue or what.
Yeah, Super Contra is interesting, which is interesting because I'm reading here, it's called Super Contra in Japan.
Not Super C.
It's Super C in the U.S., but the game's otherwise the same.
That was always confusing.
What I'm curious about is I don't know if there's a European version of the NES Mini. I think there probably is, but that's Super Probotector, and you're not a guy, you're a robot.
That's changed, but that's Europe, and this is the Japanese.
Yeah,
yeah.
Exactly. So I think that's the most different version.
Yeah.
Super Probotector. It's interesting that they have Mario USA and not Lost Levels.
Yeah,
well, or Doki Doki Panic.
Yeah, Doki Panic. Yeah, Lost Levels is Super Nintendo.
But okay, Super Mario 2 or Doki Doki Panic.
Super Mario 2, the Japanese version, is what I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Which people call the Lost Levels, but the Lost Levels is the name of the inclusion of it on the Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
Yeah, they gave. This has and they call it Mario USA, which I know about, and we played a little bit of that, and it looks good and everything. But yeah, it's very curious that why does this not have Doki Doki Panic on it?
Would you rather, let's say that it's not interesting or exotic or whatever. You're comparing Doki Doki Panic to Super Mario USA.
Yeah.
Which one would you rather have?
At this point in my life,
yeah,
Doki Doki Panic, because I've played less of it, and it's a harder game, so it's more
Right.
interesting to me because of the challenge. But over the course of my whole life, I would say Mario because Mario 2 because it's Mario 2. It's the game I grew up with.
Right. It's on the cover of Nintendo Power 1.
It's on the cover of Nintendo Power 1, so my answer would actually be Mario 2. Yeah.
I do like Kirby in this collection.
Yeah, Kirby's always a good choice.
The two shooters are good, Galaga and Gradius.
Mm-hmm.
They're both good.
Can't go wrong. We didn't check into this, but I think that there are more stars in the background of Galaga.
It looks like there's multiple layers.
There's multiple layers going on,
Yeah.
where I don't think it's like that. I'd have to look in the NES version.
Hey, you know what's funny? The last time I played Galaga was in the beginning of Tekken for PlayStation.
Okay.
Like the loading screen of Tekken for PlayStation is Galaga.
I go to the arcade sometimes. They have like barcades around, and I play the actual machine.
It.
Yeah, I like Galaga.
Yeah. Whenever I go to Barcade, I always play the Play Choice. I play Mega Man 1.
You're playing it.
Yeah, which is
He's like
funny.
playing NES games.
Yeah, but it's weird because it has a timer.
Yeah, and there's Contra as well.
Yeah,
which
there
like
is.
that.
Yeah,
which is hard.
It's hard playing Mega Man with a joystick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, with an arcade stick. It's a different experience. Like especially like Hardman stage with the things that flip down.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's totally different
It's
experience.
brutal. It's brutal.
So what else is on here?
Yeah.
Balloon Fight is on here, which is mostly the same. Ice Climber, pretty much the same thing. Regular Super Mario Brothers, I didn't see any changes there.
Yeah.
Ghosts and Goblins, I played a little of that.
The control felt weird.
Yeah. Yeah. Something about like jumping. I don't know. I'd have to play more of it. But when I was jumping in this, because I've beaten Ghosts and Goblins, like the NES version of it, and yeah, like I had a hard time jumping forward basically, and I don't know what the deal with that was, but that was a little weird. But other than that, it was pretty much the same thing. As we said, Solomon's Key, great inclusion. Metroid, the music just sounds way better.
Way better on Metroid. I think the Zeldas are both like a mixed bag. Like I kind of like the NES music better.
I thought that the music for Adventure of Link, the Famicom version, did not sound as good as what. Maybe I'm just used to it because I grew up with it, but to me it didn't sound as good. But I can say I also grew up playing Metroid, and I think the music from Metroid sounds better on the Famicom. So
yeah, I definitely want to dig deeper into Metroid and see what the save feature gives you.
That's
because
awesome.
it's huge. It's huge. It changes the game. And I'm also curious, one thing we didn't look up that should be looked up is what do you do to do the Justin Bailey code in
It's probably a different name
Metroid.
or different input.
You probably have to put something different in there, if it's even in the game, which is interesting.
Mario 3 was basically the same. Ninja Gaiden was pretty much the same. Mega Man 2 had like the birds in the back.
No, but
instead
I
of
did
stars.
that. That's a trick.
Oh, you hit it.
Because
Oh.
you held it up. What was weird about Mega Man 2, and this may be an emulation thing and not a region thing, is that when we played Metal Man Stage and the drills come down,
Oh yeah.
there wasn't any slowdown.
No lag on that, or very little.
which is bizarre, and I don't know if that was always like that in the Japanese version or if that was just because.
I mean, what's on here is
the
actually, it's an emulator, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly. So it could be clocked faster.
It could be
or
a number
whatever.
of things.
It could be a lot of things.
Double Dragon 2: The Revenge.
That's the best Double Dragon to have.
I agree.
Yeah,
I mean, you can play two
that's-
people at the same time.
I mean, we said the same thing in the NES one, but
yeah.
yeah.
Mario Open Golf is not a game that I played a lot, but that's on there.
You were more of a golf guy, right?
Regular golf, I
Regular
played
golf,
quite
yeah.
a bit.
Yeah. Well, Mario Open Golf was like a later title.
Was it? Yeah.
It was like it had like the red.
because NES
top.
Golf came out.
Yeah.
That was one of the black box games.
Yeah,
wasn't
it was. Yeah.
So yeah, that's the one I played.
Ice Climber, like, come on, Ice Climber.
I don't dislike Ice Climber, but if I wouldn't put it on the NES Classic list
Yeah.
or the Famicom Classic. It's like an okay game.
Should be called Ice Climber: The Quest for the Unfortunate Emojis.
Yeah, we got a eggplant emoji in there.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah, but overall, this is a pretty. I think this is a pretty cool product. I think that they did a good job for it for the market that it's in. I don't think we also mentioned Dr. Mario, by the way.
Yeah.
Dr. Mario is also this pretty much the same thing.
It's great.
The NES Classic. The NES Classic is not a bad product. It's a good product. The problem is getting your hands on it, which we've mentioned before. This is also hard to get, right?
Yeah. I mean, I only saw the alert pop up.
Okay.
Because I only wanted to pay retail. Like, I think you could go on Amazon and get this for like
an inflated price,
$60 or
okay.
something. I think the NES Classic selection is way better, but I still have the criticism I had with the NES Classic, and that's this computer. This is it's 2017. This is a computer. This could have every NES game on it, and then some.
Yeah, you can easily fit them
And
all.
it could go on Netflix and check your email and do 1,000 other things.
Right.
And all it does is play 30-some games. Like, maybe 100 Nintendo. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I think it...
Well, if the product is being called classics, how many games were really classics? I mean, you're not... If you have Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde on there, that's not a classic.
Yeah, but I mean, it doesn't have Punch-Out on it. It doesn't have Contra 1 on it.
Yeah, it could definitely have more games.
I'm
just saying, if what you meant was like, oh, it should include all 800-something games,
no,
then it's not a classic.
But I think there's probably 50 classic
I agree,
games.
Definitely. I think there's probably 100 classic games.
And there's games on here that I don't think are classic in the context of NES. Like, we have Pac-Man, but we don't have Tetris. What?
Yeah.
You know?
Again, no Lolo.
No Lolo. It would be interesting if they tried to solve the Duck Hunt problem somehow.
Yeah.
Because this is their shot. The HDMI port's on the back of this thing. What can we do? It would be really interesting if there was some way to do gun games.
They definitely should do that.
Even if it was just Duck Hunt. So it's pretty cool, and check it out. The Super Nintendo Mini is coming soon, and we're doing everything we can to get it, and we'll be back to tell you about it if we can get our hands on one.
One more thing I wanted to mention, we are going to be at the Retropalooza convention in Arlington, Texas. It's going to be on October 7th and 8th. Come on out and get your stuff signed.
We'll be there. If you're a fan of the Game Chasers, if you're a fan of any other number of retro and modern video game people on YouTube, if you like marketplaces, if you like tournaments, if you like consoles, and if you want to see us, you go there at the Arlington Convention Center October 7th and 8th.
Check the link in the description below.